There we go. You must go on. Today we will talk web browsers. Has anybody ever used one of these?
No.
Good. This will be an eye-opening experience for everyone. Tough crowd. Ouch. So Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, and the security measures that you can add to them. And if anybody's got a Mac, we could talk about Safari real quick, but we're going to need to plug it in. Edge doesn't have any security problems, so it's fine. Every time I start up Chrome, it tells me that. It says, hey, guess what? This is way more secure than that thing you just started.
Yeah, so say I went into coding and turned that off because it was bugging me.
Good idea. We will talk about the Opera security and Safari and not Edge. Although Edge is sort of, the handles on it are similar to the ones that are on Internet Explorer, even though it's a brand new code base. So this should be review, right? You click on the little icon of the fox that looks like a planet, or the little Chrome or the little IE, and you see a web page, and it is good, and everyone is happy. We're all enjoying it. You can see the cat pictures. Then you can look up the phone number for the help desk and say, why can't I see the cat pictures? I keep looking up stuff, and it says the cat pictures are blocked. Man. I blame you.
I haven't sneezed yet.
Blame you. Past your evil.
So happy if I
On to me.
I've been sneezing for 20 years.
Oh man. It's actually like this curse that you passed on to me. All right, so this is actually a scary statement. Users should evaluate the risks of their software. Do you think that's true? Do you think like Cindy in accounting, who's paid to do invoicing, should be having deep thoughts about the relative vulnerability? Maybe. I mean, we all need to be certainly aware of that sort of thing. But if it's not your, if it's not your day in, day out thing, ain't nobody got time for that. I got to do work. I got a day job. So when these vulnerabilities come up, and not just in web browsers, in the things that live inside of web browsers, plugins, add-ons, all that fun stuff, it gets tricky. And how is an average user supposed to differentiate between, like, for them, if they know what a web browser is at all, and they don't just think that's what Google is, which a lot of the users I've talked to, they're like, oh, sure, I know what Google is. Let me pull it up. And they click on Internet Explorer and they type Google into the Bing search engine, and then they click on the Google link that Bing gives them, and they're like, see, there's the internet. And we're hoping that these people understand that, like, they're looking at a Flash plugin in an HTML5 container in a web browser on an operating system. So maybe they should evaluate the threats of the software they use, but they're probably not appropriately equipped to do it.
I don't know if anybody ever saw it, but there was a thing for Google, like, I think it was April Fool's Day or something, but typed in the Bing search engine, it's brought you to Disney dumpster fire. What do you type in Bing?
Maybe that's what happens when you Google Bing on Google. It shows you a dumpster fire. Anybody use Bing as their primary search engine?
When I use Cortana, it searches through Edge, and I can't change it.
Yeah, that might be part of why I don't use Cortana. Awesome. All right, so you guys have used a web browser, right? Presumably. You've typed in something. So HTTP, that's the protocol we're going to use, or HTTPS. Anybody ever used FTP in a web browser? That's a thing. It works. Colon, forward. If you're using a web browser to do FTP, you can do FTP. Is it colon username at or username at web's FTP server colon password? Username colon password at FTP server. I think that's the syntax most browsers want. So you can do more than just pull up web pages in most web browsers. Then the browser does a DNS lookup for bing.com, turns that into an IP address, and looks for a specific document in a specific path. Right? That whole /, if you go to grcc.edu/CIS, it's presumably looking for the CIS folder and presenting you with whatever the root document is in there. So originally, although it's not always how it works these days, the idea was that you were looking at the directory structure of that web server. So in addition to HTTPS and FTP, Gopher, remember Gopher? Before there was the internet, there was Gopher. Did anybody have to take using the internet here? I might recommend against it, but if you did, I think when I took it, we were introduced to Gopher back in the day. First online class I ever took. Usenet newsgroups used to be supported. I don't know if you could get to that these days. Most people's internet service providers are not in the newsgroup business, and you have to pay for a newsgroup subscription. And then Mail2. You've probably done that when you've clicked an email address inside of a web page and been presented with, you know, all of a sudden it's asking you which email client you want to do, and the email pops up. You can even include subject in that, and then telnet too. Most browsers do understand how to do that. So there's like, one of the reasons if you're concerned about information security, you have to follow the news is because these things pop up all the time. So Firefox comes up with an information leak vulnerability where you can use directory transversal tricks. So remember now that we know that the /CIS is supposed to be a folder, and presumably there are folders behind it, and a misconfigured thing will let you traverse backwards through the directory. Sometimes those things pop up. And for a limited window of time, that 0-day time frame, you'll be able to use those sorts of things to get up to no good. Firefox will also, had a little brief window where we could trick users into thinking they were looking at a trusted website when they weren't. We've actually got a really long window to do that where most users will pretty much accept any certificate that you send them, unless it's so phony that it throws if it's not from an authority that somebody trusts. So have you been to like the web page for your home router, or any self-signed certificate presents that new dialog where it says, "Warning, you're going to an unsafe site." Most users stop there, I hope. I don't know if because they make
With the stops, you can't really do anything.
well,
Back.
you have to like go add exception,
Yeah, but
confirm certificate.
just back out and not go with.
So you can get there, but I think it's scary enough that most users won't do it. Java, another vulnerability that popped up was that Firefox will save your passwords, which is a little creepy. There have been a handful of vulnerabilities recently where even password managers, if you've set them up so that they automatically fill in fields, that you can have a hidden field on the web page, so a web page that the user can't see, but the script for the password manager or your browser can see. And so that's a technique people are using to steal the passwords stored in your browsers without you seeing it. So a little scary. You should know that your browsers are doing this, are storing passwords, unless you're explicitly going in and telling them not to. Same thing's true of any kind of form data you've filled out where you've entered in username, password, credit card number, all that fun stuff. Those wind up stuffed in your browsers. And if you're thinking from a security perspective about your personal operational security, the more of this crap you leave lying around in browsers, the larger your attack surface becomes, right? If you've got all this crap saved in your browser, now you're vulnerable to that. Then mix in a authenticated user account for that browser who's logged into their Chrome right now on their personal computer, right? It's convenient.
Oh, it's logging me out.
Uh-oh.
Or like I have it set so it logs me out, so nobody can write like so long into it or all your friends.
You have to watch out for
I
that.
wasn't logged in, right? I mean, I looked everywhere on my.
You did leave that one logged in last week.
Oops. Didn't leave any notes. I checked everywhere because I'm like, he put a note. He's gonna put a note somewhere.
I was a nice boy and I just logged you off, but it's a thing. So a good idea to keep track of these things. If you are, you have to be conscious of your adversary, your threat model, right? Am I worried that Putin is out to get me personally? I mean, yes, because I'm worried that everybody's out to get me personally, but maybe not really. Maybe I don't want him to know that I know he's out to get me. So maybe I don't worry so much about clearing my history and my cache and that sort of thing. Because I don't have anything to hide, right? I'm not up to no good. We talked about how nummy cookies are. But they also contain more personally identifying information, usually by design. Most cookies these days have something to do with session management or ad tracking, so somebody's keeping an eye on you. Maybe you want to delete those at the end of every session. It would certainly be good OPSEC. Maybe, I mean, if you really want to get very annoyed, set your browser up so that it warns you before it writes every cookie. Anybody tried NoScript in the last little while? Do you use it?
Yeah.
Man, it basically just destroys the internet. It's like the internet disable button.
Just wait a lot. It takes a while to get it going the way you want, but most of us go to the same sites over and over again. Yeah. Once they're wiped out,
Huh. All right.
I feel like it's good for venturing into foreign territory.
When you have to go out there into the scary dark webs, that's when you need it. All right. I thought Tor kept everything secure and private all the time. A cookie viewer is not a bad idea. So if you're really curious and you're not running NoScript, so you never get a cookie ever, take a look at what you've got going on. And we sort of played this game with the history tools earlier in the semester, like what it is that we're looking at and how much of that gets stored. So Firefox will let you delete stuff as soon as the browser closes. You can set them to expire. Disabling cookies is probably more painful than disabling JavaScript, but is anybody trying that these days? Like browsing the web with no cookies enabled? It would seem like nothing would work.
yeah, that is almost it.
It's an interconnected series of cookies. Cookie Cutter is an add-on that could do that sort of stuff, that will like take care of all that stuff and has a remove all button. It'll delete all those cookies that people have written to your hard drives. Ugh. So Firefox does have that whole zones model. They don't let you run active content, which is good. ActiveX is kind of a dumpster fire. And configurable security policies, which are good, and options for how you handle your history, how you handle your cookies. You can go in and play around on the securities tab, mess with how it manages your passwords. Boy, the enable Java option is probably your enemy. Anybody getting away with not installing Java? I had managed to go a long time until I ran across something just recently. What's that? Until you run into some Java application you have to run, and then it's like, time to reinstall it.
Some academic stuff, like certain calculators and physics stuff, other than that,
And then you cry, and then you have to deal with like which version of Java you have to deal with, which is never fun. Content tabs will let you clear that out. Clearing private data. I think the last time I cleared private data, it said, hey, do you know about incognito mode? Like, you're getting awful personal here, aren't you, browser? I just wanted to clear out my cookies for security reasons, I'm sure. So, pop-up blockers off by default, or on by default rather, which is actually kind of, again, I run into academic web pages where I need to have a pop-up show up and have to go through and turn it off. Ad block is your friend. Anybody got a personal favorite other than actual ad block, brand ad block, or uBlock torrent, uBlock origin? Those are the two that I'm for. Ad block is a whole like messy political conversation these days. So I like journalism. I think it's an important part of a functioning democracy. And it seems like Facebook might not be up to the task of delivering me unfiltered and unbiased news. But so somebody's got to pay for those people to like have jobs, and advertising tends to be how we do that. But if I use an ad blocker,
in YouTube and like Twitch models too, where they get paid based on ads, they don't get paid on the ads and whatnot.
See? And how am I ever going to be rich on my Twitch channel? Because people want to watch me spending 6 hours playing Warhammer Deathwing for hours on end, basically just walking around looking at spaceships.
Dying now. For some reason. Nobody wants to watch them anymore.
Nobody wants to watch them because nobody's getting paid because everybody's using an ad blocker.
Well, no, nobody wants to watch like video game streams anymore. Like it's dying.
I was always amazed that the generation immediately after mine, so like people in their 30s, find that an acceptable mode of entertainment. Like, if when I was a kid, if I went over to your house and you played a single player game, I left. You know, you're like, man, I'm going to play Ocarina of Time for 6 hours here. I know people who are like, a perfectly acceptable solution to do is just like,
That's fun to watch.
it's like the worst TV show ever.
It's pretty funny to watch.
But like, watching people get frustrated and throw their mouse at a screen is one thing, but
Well, I know people have broken several controllers. I'm one of them. And a TV.
I'm supposed to be teaching the appropriate attitudes for IT, which flipping out and throwing your mouse, not one of those. Okay, so ad block problem, bigger discussion than just security. Because the reason I run ad block isn't because I hate free media and want reporters and Twitch channel owners and YouTubers to starve. It's because you jerks serve up malware in your ad networks. I had this happen just last night as I was doing exactly what you're not supposed to do. I was settling into bed and putting my phone on the charger, and I was like, oh, let's look through Flipboard. Oh, look, a listicle with clickbait. I'll click on that because it's late at night and I have no self-control left. And, and I'm like, yes, I'd like to learn the top 50 foods that will prevent belly fat. Yes, click, click, click. And the third click in, all of a sudden my phone is vibrating and there's this ad up there that says, your phone has 62 viruses. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, really? And it was that third, picture in that's an advertisement from some ad network who sold all the good ads this week and now they're running whatever crap somebody paid for. Well, now I have to shut down the phone.
Those things are viruses, right?
No.
No.
No, it's just a clever ad doing things that you shouldn't let ads do. So is it a virus? By definition, a virus writes itself to a file, which that didn't do. But it was malware. It attempted to get me to click a link that would take me to install something from the App Store. So,
You see,
virus,
I always
maybe.
backed out of those. I never really investigated to see where it went.
Oh, I copied the URL so that I could investigate it later because,
It takes you to
like,
some
security
site to download
research is something I'm into. What's that?
It
Yeah.
takes you to some site to download.
It was like,
I should have figured.
I forget what the URL was.
Thank you.
It was like badbrowser.com and then the string of the code that it was entering into the browser. Yeah, interesting stuff to research. But so there's the trade-off. So if the ad networks would police their crap, excuse me again, Dominic, we wouldn't have these problems, but they don't, so we do. And then that's where this is where I part ways with AdBlock too, because their business model is we preview the ads, and if we decide that the ads are okay, we let the ads go through. And oh, by the way, if you want to pay us, we'll move your ad to the top of the line for us to look at next, which is like sketchy to me too. Aha! Kleenex.
No, you need them more than I do.
No, but that shirt's not going to handle many more sneezes. Just protecting it. Elliot called me out, so.
There you get that out free.
Ad blockers. So, Firefox tries to let users know if a site is secure. We'll see how well that works out. It helps. You can look at that little lock icon and see why Firefox thinks that's the case. And usually that means that some very trustworthy service like the Chinese Hong Kong Post Office has issued a certificate to somebody. They have verified that that's correct, and that's good. The domain shows up in the bottom, so you know that you are in fact looking at malware downloader .com, which is nice. Hacking Internet Explorer is almost too easy. I mean, they have had their issues in the past. And that's why Microsoft, who really, to their credit, had like the world's hardest lesson taught to them over like the course of the previous decade. Like from the late 90s into the early aughts, into the late aughts really. So like until about 2008-9, when Windows 7 came out, when Server 2008 came out, Microsoft really had like their faces smashed into just how bad their security was and made huge changes to make it right. So it seems like Internet Explorer was the last thing to get fixed, and they fixed it by throwing it away and saying, you know what, this is dog boo-boo. We need to make this better. And started over with what was called Project Spartan, and then now that's Microsoft Edge. And it is kind of fast, and it does do what they say it does for the most part. It's not horrible. It's great whenever I have to download Firefox or Chrome. It's right there. They did some dumb things. They did this redirection stuff. There were all kinds of injection vulnerabilities, which is bad. This sort of defeated the purpose of having this whole trusted sites thing when Microsoft's little injection vulnerability rears its head. If you were looking at a trusted site, the untrusted site could eject itself into it, and now it's a trusted site, and now it has more privileges than a web page maybe should. So if you go into the IE Security Options tab, you can play with all of these zones. Usually you'll find yourself here because you're using some crummy web app that somebody in IT decided we just absolutely had to have, that is software as a service, that is only built to run in Internet Explorer and requires access to everything. I'm trying to think, the last time I played this game, it was because we had a backpack live remote. So Miranda's down there below us right now, right? She's probably using, I didn't see a live truck. So what they're probably doing is using one of these backpacks that has like 5 cell cards in it. And to control those things, you went to a website, the device talked to the website, and the website needed to be Internet Explorer, and it needed to have the run of your computer. So you went into the Securities tab, you added a custom level for that particular website. You said permit, and then added it to the trusted zone. Funny story, I had been out of broadcasting for, man, this is probably a year and a half, and I was updating. You ever do the security challenge in LastPass, where it says the following passwords are the same? And I had a bunch show up that were in one of my computer's browsers that were like all the websites I used for the old company, and I was like, oh, they must have changed these by now. And I just kind of just curious, started clicking on them, like, oh, we haven't changed those passwords in 2 years, and those website credentials are still valid. So a little scary. So that's what the trusted sites thing is about. It says, you know, I'm going to let Degero.com or whoever it was be trusted. I'm going to let them run code. I'm not going to be as militant about them as I can be. That's what that looks like that looks like Windows 7. And there's all the different things. Like if you want to make a custom level, you can go through this list and say, I'm going to allow it to run ActiveX. I'm not going to allow it to run any kind of scripts. I'm not going to allow it to run binary. And this stuff is kind of scary. They're working on languages that will allow websites to talk directly to video cards on kind of a low level, which is a little creepy. Internet Explorer will let you decide how you handle cookies. But again, if you're only using it long enough to download Chrome or Edge or, well, you can't download Edge really. Long enough to download Chrome or Firefox, maybe Safari. Do we have any Opera users in the house? No? Probably says something about Opera. Then you can go in and you can pick like what happens when I click on an email link, what's the external mail application. So security features, you can turn off ActiveX. It's sort of an unsecurity feature that you can even turn on ActiveX. So they have a little status bar. They've got a phishing filter. They can throw up cross-domain barriers, which actually should be a thing anyway. You shouldn't be able to have different code run on a different website than the website you're using. Never a good idea. Handy little fix my settings button is like make the links work. Adios.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. This hopefully will be on the internet for you before tomorrow. Yeah. So you can delete your browsing history, always a good idea. What do they call private mode in IE these days?
Oh, incognito?
Is it? Is it? Okay. Opera's had their issues. They handled Java badly, JavaScript badly. BitTorrent headers, not that anybody's using BitTorrent for anything other than downloading completely legitimate Linux distributions. It's the only reason you should be doing it. Oh, and if you're not, you certainly should be paying the $20 a year or whatever for a freaking VPN service. So they had this thing where they would try and parse BitTorrent headers and get you into trouble. So you click on what looks like a BitTorrent link, gets naughty. File handling buffer overflow is the same idea. It was handling keys for a torrent file, blows up. So maybe you want to use an external tool to get your BitTorrents and not Opera. It is unfair to say that like Opera is the only web browser that handles encryption, because they all do. But they have a little fraud protection feature and another security bar, some ability to clear your private data. But those are kind of like, you know, those are table stakes these days. You better come to the browser party with that stuff if you want to come in. Safari's got its issues. Any Safari users? No Mac people in the house? Man.
Not even big.
You won't even admit to it. Is Safari the Internet Explorer of Mac? You just open it up long enough to get Chrome? These days I have sites that, like I've got a feel for the websites I have to use most. So for, like Blackboard really seems to be friendly with Firefox, so I do most of my Blackboard in Firefox. All the Google tools work better in Chrome for obvious reasons, so. I have used Safari in the not distant past. I think long enough to pull up Netflix on my MacBook Pro.
I like Firefox. Tools in the rated account and then log in elsewhere in the world.
And all those tools are there. So there's your LastPass and there's your uBlock Origin.
Yeah, I just remember out.
Oh, so like if you were using an API key to get into Shodan or something, it follows you around. That's nice. These iPhone Safari bugs have been the way rootkit manufacturers have been getting into these phones for ages. You might want to block pop-ups. That's sort of a 1990s problem. Remember the pop under? They'd have JavaScript to pull a window up and then throw it behind the browser, and it'd sit back there loading ads the whole time you were browsing. That was cool. Autofill, again, is dangerous, and we've seen a lot of those hide the field from the user, but not hide the field from the browser, and the browser throws in credit card number, password, home address, those kinds of fields. And it has the same kind of settings bar. An interesting one is that accept cookies from sites, only sites you navigate to. And if you think about the advertising networks out there, they're trying to feed you cookies, but they're not sites you intentionally like sought out and browsed to. That's not bad. So browsers, it's how you get around on the internet. HTML makes web pages using HTTP. Firefox got problems for password browsing and personal information getting filled in. Be wary when you do that sort of thing. Cookies don't execute code. They don't have viruses, but they do track you pretty well. Every browser, including Firefox, will let you delete them. Firefox will do it as soon as you close the browser. Not a terrible idea. Malicious users can steal that stuff from you. They're bad. Dear God, don't use ActiveX. You're stuck using Java, although apparently some people can get by without it. I'm going to try it. All right, I'm going to take you guys at your word. I'm gonna do the no script thing for a week and see if it makes me want to pull my hair out. Opera does SSL. Whew, isn't that nice? TLS is kind of where we're at these days, though. And Safari will Safari's better than this now. Safari does not automatically just start running things. I speak from experience because I've used it in the last month.